28. Ali. Ali knew he was dying when he crashed through the lake's placid surface. The icy water sucked him down and attacked him like a rabid animal, shredding his clothes and tearing at his skin. It scrabbled at his mouth and surged up his nose. A white-hot heat burst inside his head. He screamed into the water. There was something there, an alien presence rooting through his mind, sifting through his memories like a bored student flipping through a book. His mother singing an Ataran lullaby, the hilt of a Zulfikar in his hands for the first time, Nahri's laughter in the library, Daevabad raising his bow. Everything stopped. There was a hiss in his ear. "He is here?" the lake itself seemed to demand. The turbulent water stilled, and there was a warm press at his throat and chest as the arrows dissolved. The relief was temporary. Before Ali could even think about kicking for the surface, something snaked around his left ankle and yanked him down. He squirmed as water weeds wrapped his body, the roots digging into his flesh. The images in his mind flashed faster as the lake devoured his memories of Daevabad, their duel, the way he'd looked upon Nahri in the infirmary, the fiery light that filled his ring as he charged the ship. Words burst into his mind again. "Tell me your name." Ali's lungs burned. 2 clams were trying to burrow into his stomach, and a pair of toothy jaws clamped down on his shoulder. "Please," he begged, "just let me die." "Your name, Alu Baba." The lake crooned the words in his mother's voice this time, a baby name he'd not heard in years. "Give your name, or see what shall pass." The image of the hated Afshin was swept away, to be replaced by Daevabad, or what was once Daevabad and was now little more than a burning ruin, surrounded by an evaporated lake and filled with the ash of its people. His father lay slaughtered on the marble steps of the wrecked royal court, and Muntadir hung from a smashed window screen. The citadel collapsed, burying alive Wajed and all the soldiers with whom he'd grown up. The city burned. Houses burst into flames and children screamed. No. Ali writhed in the lake's grip, but there was no way to stop the awful visions. Skeletally thin gray beings with vibrant wings bowed down in obedience. Rivers and lakes dried up, their towns overtaken by fire and dust, while a land he recognized as Am-Gezira was swept away by a poisonous sea. A lonely palace grew from Daevabad's ashes, spun from fired glass and molten metals. He saw Nahri. Her face was veiled in Nahid white, but her dark eyes were visible and filled with despair. A shadow fell over her, the shape of a man. that Ayavahush, but with black eyes and a scar across his young face, lacking the handsome grace of a slave. Then his eyes were green again and older, his familiar smug smile briefly returning. His skin flared with fiery light, and his hands turned to coal. His eyes were golden now and utterly alien. Look. The vision started to repeat, lingering on the images of his murdered family. Muntadir's dead eyes snapped open. "Say your name, Aki," his brother begged. "Please." Ali's mind spun. His lungs were empty, the water thick with his blood. His body was shutting down, a fuzzy blackness encroaching on the bloody visions. "No," the lake hissed, desperate. "Not yet." It shook him hard, and the images grew more vicious. His mother brutalized, given over to hungry crocodiles with the rest of the Ayanle, while a crowd of Devas cheered. The Shafit rounded up and set on fire in the Medan. Their screams filled the air, the scent of crackling flesh making him gag. Muntadir pushed to his knees and beheaded before the yellow eyes of a jeering group of Ifrit. A mass of unknown soldiers pulling Zainab from her bed and ripping her clothes. "No. Oh, God, no. Stop this." "Save her," his father's voice demanded. "Save us all." The iron bindings grew weak with rust and then burst apart. Something metallic was pressed into his hand. A hilt. A pair of bloody hands wrapped around his sister's throat. Zainab's terrified gaze locked on his. "Brother, please," she screamed. Ali broke. Had he been less certain of his imminent death, or had he been raised in the outer provinces where one was taught never to speak their true name, to guard it as they did their very soul, he might have hesitated. The request immediately understood for what it was. But assaulted by the images of his brutalized family and city, he didn't care why the lake wanted what it must have already learned from his memories. "Alizaid!" he screamed, the water muffling his words. "Alizaid al-Khatani!" The pain vanished. His fingers closed around the hilt without him willing them to do so. His body suddenly felt distant. He was barely aware of being released, of being pushed through the water. "Kill the Deva." Ali broke through the lake's surface, but did not gasp for breath. He did not need it. He climbed up the ship's hull like a crab and then stood, water streaming from his clothes, his mouth, his eyes. "Kill the Deva." He heard the Deva speak. The air was wrong, empty and dry. He blinked and something burned on his cheek. The world grew quieter, gray. The Deva was before him, Part of his mind registered shock in the other man's green eyes as he raised a blade to defend himself. But his movements were clumsy. Ali knocked his weapon away, and it flew into the dark lake. The Jinn soldier in Ali saw his chance, the other man's neck exposed. The ring! The ring! Ali changed the direction of his blow, bringing it down toward the glowing green gem. Ali swooned. The ring clattered away, and the sword fell from his hand, now more a rusty artifact than a weapon. Nahri's screams filled the air. "Kill the Deva," he mumbled and collapsed, the blackness finally welcoming him. Ali was dreaming. He was back in the harem, in the pleasure gardens of his mother's people, a small boy with his small sister hiding in their usual spot under the willow tree. Its bowed branches and thick fronds made a cozy nook next to the canal, hidden from the sight of any interfering grown-ups. "Do it again," he begged. "Please, Zainab." His sister sat up with a wicked smile. The water-filled bowl rested in the dust between her skinny, crossed legs. She raised her palms over the water. "What will you give me?" Ali thought fast, considering which of his few treasures he'd be willing to part with. Unlike Zainab, he had no toys. No trinkets and amusements were given to boys groomed to be warriors. "I can get you a kitten," he offered. "There's lots near the citadel." Zainab's eyes lit up. "Done!" She wiggled her fingers, a look of intense concentration brewing in her small face. The water shuddered, following the motion of her hands, and then slowly rose as she spun her right hand, whirling like a liquid ribbon. Ali's mouth fell open in wonder, and Zainab giggled before smashing the watery funnel down. "Show me how," he said, reaching for the bowl. "You can't do it," Zainab said self-importantly. "You're a boy and a baby. You can't do anything." "I'm not a baby." Wajed uncle had even given him a spear shaft to carry around and scare off snakes. Babies couldn't do that. The screen of leaves was suddenly swept away and replaced with his mother's angry face. She took one look at the bowl, and her eyes flashed with fear. "Zainab!" She yanked his sister away by her ear. "How many times have I told you? You are never to—" Ali scurried back, but his mother wasn't interested in him. She never was. He waited until they had crossed the garden, Zainab's sobs growing distant, before he crept back toward the bowl. He stared at the still water, at the dark profile of his face surrounded by the pale, sunlit leaves. Ali raised his fingers and beckoned the water closer. He smiled when it began to dance. He knew he wasn't a baby. The dream receded, swept back in the realm of childhood memories to be forgotten as a sharp bite of pain tugged at his elbow. Something growled in the very recesses of his mind, clawing and snapping to stay put. The tug came again, followed by a burst of heat, and the thing released. "That's the last of it, my king," a female voice said. A light sheet fluttered over his body. "Cover him well," a man commanded. "I would spare him the sight as long as possible." Abba, he recognized as his memory came back to him in a shambles. The sound of his father's voice was enough to drag him free of the fog of pain and confusion miring his body. And then another voice. "Abba, I'm begging you." Muntadir. His brother was sobbing, pleading. "I'll do anything you want. Marry anyone you want. Just let the Nahid treat him. Let Nasreen help him. By God, I'll bind his wounds myself. Jamshid saved my life. He shouldn't have to suffer because—" "Kave's son will be seen when mine opens his eyes." Rough fingers tightened on Ali's wrist. "He will be healed when I have the name of the Deva who left those supplies on the beach." Ghassan's voice turned colder. "Tell him that. And pull yourself together, Muntadir. Stop weeping over another man. You shame yourself." Ali heard the sound of a chair kicked away and a door slammed shut. Their words were meaningless to Ali, but their voices— oh God, their voices— "Abba," he tried again. "Abba," he finally choked out, trying to open his eyes. A woman's face swam into view before his father could respond. Nasreen, Ali remembered, recognizing Nahri's assistant. "Open your eyes, Prince Alizade, as wide as you can." He obeyed. She leaned in to examine his gaze. "I see no trace of the blackness remaining, my king." She stepped back. I don't understand," Ali started. He was flat on his back, exhausted. His body burned, his skin stung, and his mind felt raw. He looked up, recognizing the tempered glass ceiling of the infirmary. The sky was gray, and rain swirled on the transparent plates. "The palace was destroyed. You were all dead." "I'm not dead, Alizade," Ghassan assured him. "Try to relax. You've been injured." But Ali couldn't relax. "What about Zainab?" he asked, his ears ringing with his sister's screams. "Is she— did those monsters—" He tried to sit up, suddenly realizing his wrists were bound to the bed. He panicked. "What is this? Why am I restrained?" You were fighting us. Do you not remember?" Ali shook his head, and his father nodded to Nasreen. "Cut him loose." "My king, I'm not certain." "I was not asking." Nasreen obeyed, and his father helped him sit up, swatting his hands away when Ali tried to pull off the white sheet that had been tucked around him like swaddling cloth. "Leave that be. And your sister is fine. We are all fine." Ali glanced again at the rain beating against the glass ceiling. The sight of the water was oddly alluring. He blinked, forcing himself to look away. "But I don't understand. I saw you, all of you, dead. I saw Daevabad destroyed." Ali insisted, and yet even as he said the words, the details were already starting to escape him. The memories pulled away like the tide while newer, firmer ones replaced them. His fight with the Afshin. He shot me. He shot me and I fell in the lake. Ali touched his throat, but felt no injury. He started to shake. I shouldn't be alive. No one survived the lake, not since the Marids cursed it thousands of years ago. "The Afshin," Ali stammered. He was trying to flee with Nahri. Did you catch him?" He saw his father hesitate. "In a manner of speaking." He glanced at Nasreen. "Take that away to be burned, and tell the Emir to come back in here." Nasreen rose, her black eyes unreadable. In her arms was a wooden bowl filled with what looked like bloody lake debris, shells and rocks, mangled hooks, a tiny decayed fish, and a few teeth. The sight stirred him, and he watched as she left, passing by two larger reed baskets on the floor. A dead gray tentacle the size of a viper shared one with roughly torn water weeds. The toothy jaw of a crocodile skull peeked out from the second. Ali drew up straight, teeth sinking into my shoulder, weeds and tentacles seizing my limbs. He glanced down, suddenly realizing just how carefully the sheet had been tucked around his body. He grabbed for one end. His father tried to stop him. "Don't, Alizaid." He tore it away and gasped. He'd been scourged. No, not scourged, he realized as his horrified gaze ran over his bloody limbs. The marks were too varied to have been made by a whip. There were gashes that cut down to muscle and scratches that barely drew blood. A pattern of scales was etched into his left wrist, and spiky ridges marred his right thigh. Strips and whorls of flesh had been carved from his arms, like one might have wound bandages. There were bite marks on his stomach. What happened to me? He started to tremble, and when no one responded, his voice broke in fright. What happened? Nasreen froze at the door. "Should I call for guards, my king?" "No," his father snapped. "Just my son." He grabbed Ali's hands. "Alizaid, calm down. Calm down." Nasreen vanished. Water streamed down his cheeks, pooling in his palms and growing clammy on his brow. Ali stared in horror at his dripping hands. "What is this? Am I sweating?" Such a thing wasn't possible. Pure-blooded jinn did not sweat. The door burst open, and Muntadir rushed in. "Zaidi, thank God," he breathed as he hurried to his bedside. His face paled. Oh. He wasn't the only one shocked. Ali gaped at his brother. Muntadir looked like he'd been on the wrong side of a street brawl. His jaw was bruised, stitches held together gashes on his cheek and brow, and bloody bandages wrapped his arms. His robe hung in shreds. He appeared to have aged 30 years. His face was drawn, his eyes swollen and darkly rimmed from crying. Ali gasped. "What happened to you?" "The Scourge was offering a demonstration of his title," Muntadir said bitterly, "until you turned him into a pile of ash." "Until I did what?" The king glared at Muntadir. "I had not yet reached that part." He glanced at Ali again, his face unusually gentle. "Do you remember climbing back on the boat, killing Daevabad?" "No!" His father and brother exchanged a dark look. "What do you remember of the lake?" Ghassan asked. Pain. Indescribable pain. But he didn't need to tell his worried father that. Something was talking to me," he remembered. "Showing me things. Awful things. You were dead, Abba. Tiru. They cut your head off in front of a crowd of Ifrit." He blinked back tears as his brother blanched. "There were men defiling Zainab. The streets were burning. I thought it all real." He swallowed, trying to regain control. More sweat poured from his skin, soaking the sheets. The voice. It was asking for something. My name. "Your name?" Ghassan asked sharply. "It asked for your name? Did you give it?" I think so," Ali replied, trying to recall his scattered memories. "I don't remember anything after that." His father went still, and Ali panicked. "Why?" "You don't give your name, Alizaid." Ghassan was clearly trying and failing to check the alarm rising in his voice. "Not freely, not to a creature who's not of our race. Giving your name means giving up control. That's how the Ifrit enslave us." "What are you saying?" Ali touched his wounds. "You think the Ifrit did this to me?" He gasped. "Does that mean—" "Not the Ifrit, Zaidi." Muntadir cut in quietly. Ali watched his brother's gaze dart to their father, but Ghassan didn't interrupt. "That's not what lives in the lake." Ali's eyes went wide. "The Marid? That's insane. They haven't been seen in thousands of years." His father hushed him. "Keep your voice down." He glanced at his eldest. "Muntadir, get him some water." Muntadir poured him a cup from the ceramic water pitcher on the table behind them, pressing it into his hand before stepping carefully away. Ali clutched it, taking a nervous sip. Ghassan's face stayed grave. "The Marid have been seen, Alizaid, by Zaidi al-Qahtani himself when he took Daevabad, in the company of the Ayanle man who commanded them." Ali went cold. "What?" "The Marid were seen by Zaidi," Ghassan repeated. "He warned his son about them when he became Emir, a warning passed down to each generation of Qahtani kings. We don't cross the Ayanle," Muntadir intoned softly. Ghassan nodded. "Zaidi said the Ayanle alliance with the Marid earned us our victory, but that the Ayanle had paid a terrible price for doing so. We were never to betray them." Ali was shocked. "The Marid helped us take Daevabad from the Nahids? But that's absurd. That's abhorrent," he realized. "That would be a betrayal of our race itself," Ghassan finished. "Which is why it doesn't leave this room." He shook his head. "My own father never believed it, said it was just a story passed down over the centuries to frighten us." Ghassan's face fell. "Until today, I thought he might be right." Ali narrowed his eyes. "What are you saying?" Ghassan took his hand. "You fell in the lake, my son. You gave your name to a creature in its depths. I think it took it. I think it took you." Ali drew up with as much indignation as he could from his soaking sheets. "You think I let a Marid, what, possess me? That's impossible."
"Zaidi."
Muntadir stepped closer, his face apologetic.
"I saw you climb back on the boat. You had all those things clinging to you. Your eyes were black. You were whispering in some bizarre language. And when you used the seal, my God, you completely overpowered Daevabad. I've never seen anything like it. The seal? He had used Suleiman's seal? No, this is madness. Utter madness. Ali was an educated man. He'd never read anything indicating that the Marid could possess pure-blooded jinn. That anything could possess jinn. How would something like that have been kept a secret? And did that mean all the gossip, all the cruel rumors about his mother's people, was rooted in truth? Ali shook his head. No, we have scholars. They know the truth about the war. Besides, jinn can't be possessed by a Marid. If they could, surely someone would have studied it. It would be in a book. Oh, my child.
His father's eyes were filled with sorrow.
Not everything is in a book.
Ali dropped his gaze, fighting back tears, unable to bear the pity in Ghassan's face. They're wrong, he tried to insist to himself. They're wrong. But how else to explain the gaps in his memory, the horrific visions, the very fact that he was alive? He'd been shot in the throat and lungs, had fallen into water cursed to shred any jinn who touched it. And here he was, a Marid. He stared at his dripping hands as nausea swept over him. I gave my name and let some water demon use my body like a shiny new blade to murder the Afshin. His stomach churned. From the corner of his eye, he saw the ceramic pitcher start to shake on the table behind his brother. God, he could sense it. He could feel the water aching to burst free. The realization shook him to the core. His father squeezed his hand.
Look at me, Alizaid. The Afshin is dead. It is over. No one need ever know.
But it wasn't over. It never would be. Sweat was pouring from Ali's brow even now. He was changed.
Ali, child.
He could hear the worry in his father's voice.
Talk to me, please.
Ali sucked in his breath, and the water pitcher behind Mutadir exploded, sending clay fragments skittering across the floor. The water gushed out, and Mutadir jumped, his hand going for the khanjar at his waist. Ali met his eyes. Mutadir dropped his hand, looking slightly ashamed.
Abba, he can't be seen like this,
he said quietly.
We need to get him out of Daevabad. Tanitri, surely the Ayanle will know better.
I'm not giving him to Hatset's people, Ghassan said stubbornly.
He belongs with us. He's making water pitchers explode and drowning in his own sweat.
Mutadir threw up his hands.
He's second in line for the throne.
2 heartbeats away from controlling Suleiman's seal and ruling the realm. For all we know, the Marid is still in there, waiting to seize him again. Muntadir met Ali's frightened eyes. Zaidi, I'm sorry. I truly am. But it is the height of irresponsibility to let you remain in Daevabad. The questions your condition will provoke. He shook his head and looked back to their father. You were the one who gave me the lecture when you made me emir. Who told me what would happen if the Devas ever suspected how we won the war? No one is going to find out anything, the king snapped. No one on the ship was close enough to see what happened. Muntadir crossed his arms. No one? Then I take it you've already taken care of our supposed Banu Nahida? Ali reeled. What do you mean? Where's Nahri? She's fine, the king assured him. I haven't decided her fate yet. I'll need your testimony if I decide to execute her. Execute her? Ali gasped. Why in God's name would you execute her? That lunatic gave her no choice. His father looked baffled. Muntadir said she ordered the Afshin to attack, that they were trying to escape when you killed him. They were? Ali flinched. That hurt. He couldn't lie. But he shook his head. That's not how it started. I came upon him trying to kidnap her in the infirmary. He told her that he'd kill me if she didn't go along with him. Muntadir snorted. Convenient. Tell me, Zaidi, did they at least hide their laughter when they acted all this out? Or did they just assume you'd too stupid to pick up on it? It's the truth. The truth. His brother scowled, his expression darkening. How would you even recognize such a thing? Ghassan frowned. What were you doing in the infirmary in the middle of the night, Ali Zaid? It doesn't matter why he was there, Abba, Muntadir said dismissively. I told you he'd protect her. He's so love-struck he doesn't even realize it. He probably does think she's innocent. I'm not love-struck, Ali snapped, offended at the prospect. The rain beat harder against the roof, echoing the pounding in his heart. I know what I saw, what I heard, and she's innocent. I will shout it in the streets myself if you try her. Go ahead, Muntadir shot back. It would hardly be the first time you shamed us in the streets. Ghassan rose to his feet. What in God's name are you two going on about? Ali couldn't answer. He could feel his control slipping. The rain drummed against the glass above him, the water achingly close. Muntadir glared at him, a warning in his gray eyes so clear he might as well have spoken it. 21 men are dead, Zaidi. Several because they fought to save my life, more because they came to rescue yours.
He blinked, tears gathering in his dark lashes. My best friend is probably going to join them, and I will be damned if that lying Nahid whore gets away with it, because your word is unreliable when it comes to the Shafit. He let the challenge lay in the air. Ali took a deep breath, trying to quell the emotions churning inside him. Something metallic groaned above their heads. A small leak sprang. Ghassan glanced up, and for the first time in his life, Ali saw true fear on his father's face. The roof gave out. The water smashed through the ceiling, sending twisted copper piping and shards of glass flying through the infirmary. The rain poured in, streaming down Ali's skin and soothing his burning wounds. From the corner of his eye, he saw Muntadir and his father duck under a remnant of ceiling. The king looked unhurt. Shocked, but unhurt. Not so his brother. Fresh black blood dripped down Muntadir's face. A piece of glass must have gouged in his cheek. Ahi, I'm sorry. Ali felt guilt twist through him, mixing with his confusion. I didn't mean to do that. To hurt you, I swear. But his brother wasn't looking at him. Muntadir's blank gaze traveled the ruined infirmary, taking in the pouring rain and destroyed ceiling. He touched his bloody cheek. No. I'm sorry, Zaidi. Muntadir wiped the blood from his face with the tail of his turban. Tell Abba whatever truth you want. Make it good. He pressed his mouth in a grim line. I'm done protecting you.